Thank you.
Camera, please. Is it? A big ol' hammerhead.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of QTVC Live. My name is Julia Arredondo, and I am your host. And we are broadcasting from Chicago's Humboldt Park neighborhood in a DIY studio built in the attic of my apartment building. QTVC Live stands for QT Vendors Channel, and we are a DIY media entity that showcases underrepresented makers, artists, creatives, hustlers, and the products we make for sale. This season of QTVC Live is brought to you by the Museum of Contemporary Art in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm super excited to be working with Mocha Cleveland this season to bring you 6 brand new episodes. This third episode of QTVC Live features Chicago-based artist Chad Kouri. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of QTVC Live Season 2. We are here in the studio with Chad Kouri, one of my favorite Chicago-based abstract artists and experimental musicians. Chad, thank you so much for making time to be here today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate that it's air conditioned in here. That makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. I'm super excited about today's episode, not only because Chad is here, Chad's become a close friend of mine here in Chicago, but because Chad normally works with larger foundations like the Terra Foundation, with bands even, and the product that we're showcasing today is a bit of a departure in medium for you, correct?
Yeah, so I'm generally working mostly in visual art, paintings, design, some consulting, but over the pandemic I've been paying a lot more attention to my music practice, and I have been thinking about how I can kind of combine the two practices, and that's where these, what I'm calling intention chimes, came from. So they incorporate. I've also wanted to make sculpture for a long time, and I've had a really difficult time trying to figure out what that looks like and why I want to make them. So this felt like a really natural progression for me. My aunt has collected wind chimes for as long as I can remember and has gifted me some of them. I don't have any indoor or outdoor space at my apartment, so they hang in my apartment over by my records. And one day I was going to put records on, and as I was going to pick a record, my head kind of hit one of the wind chimes, and ever since I've made that like a very deliberate thing that I do before I start putting records on to make the time very intentional and thoughtful while I'm there. Yeah.
Interesting. Intentional or intention chime?
Intention chime, yeah. So a ritual chime, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Particularly useful here in Chicago when outdoor space is not very common.
Yes, absolutely.
I dig it. I super dig it. I'm super excited about today's episode. We're going to take a break to visit Chad's studio here shortly. But if you do want to peruse the goods ahead of time, we've got 3 chimes available, 3 of these intention chimes you can check out, www.qtvclive.com/shop. Check them out ahead of time. These are limited edition, Chad. We've only got 3. These are the only 3 you've made so far, correct?
Yes. And I call them unique multiples. They are close to the same. They're a little bit different from each other, so they're not totally unique, but they're not additions. They're kind of in between the two.
Okay. Before we cut away to your studio, can you tell us a little bit about the process, about what these are made of that makes them so precious?
Yeah, of course. So I think a lot of my work as collage, even my music practice is very much collage, referencing a lot of different materials, referencing a lot of different time periods and things like that. These are very much collage of a bunch of different materials. There's vintage wooden beads, there's handmade oven-baked clay, there's electrical conduit and other treasures from the hardware store,
yes.
Which is a great secondary art supply shop,
Totally
as you
agree.
know.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and so they're all kind of put together, in the central pieces are dyed leather cord.
Very cool, very cool. We're going to take a moment to break to Chad's studio to see where Chad works, how Chad works. We'll be right back with some more information.
Great. You want to give them a little sound on the way out?
Thanks. Yeah.
studio to me means a safe space, and a safe space I feel like has been co-opted in a bunch of different ways and has been deflated in some capacity because it's been corporatized and utilized in a bunch of different ways. But for me, that's how I feel in my space. There's no wrong answers. It's a place to experiment. It's a place to feel whole. It's a place to seclude myself from the news or other distractions that could get in the way of my well-being and understanding of the world, and have a space that's very deliberately mine. For me, the goal with my studio art practice and creating objects and sharing them with the world is to create a holistic conversation between the viewer and the artwork that inspires the viewer to look within themselves and use their imagination and place some kind of meaning and understanding and value to the colors and shapes and objects that they're interacting with. I very much look at my studio practice as an exploration of the holistic properties of abstraction and color theory. Playing an instrument and playing with other people in particular, I find very healing and joyful and exuberant, and I felt like I needed to prioritize those kinds of things that brought me that kind of joy over the past 18 months or so. And as the world starts to open back up, I'm being much more deliberate about how I am sharing that part of my practice and making it more public.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to QTVC Live. We are here today with Chad Kouri, and we are talking about Chad's latest edition of work, varied edition of work, these intention chimes. Chad, can you talk more about the use of the word intention in this body of work, and also how you produced them, what you used?
Yeah. So I call these intention chimes because I don't have a lot of outdoor space. Well, I don't have any outdoor space, so they hang inside. Yeah. So they're not really getting a lot of wind action. For me, with my mixed ancestry, I find I've lost a lot of the rituals that I generally would get from my parents, my grandparents, and having some kind of object that kind of starts and ends a ritual for me that I've started: playing records, walking the dog, making coffee, something like that. Having an intentional object that I kind of cues me into that, I felt very helpful. I probably listen to 6 or 8 hours of music a day in the studio and elsewhere, and it's a very medicinal, holistic process in me listening to music and using audio. I have very specific music that I listen to write to, so very, very deliberate about the sounds that I use. So I felt like having something that made sound in my space that I could utilize to be really intentional about these new rituals that I want to create for myself that help ground me and help me feel more centered during my day-to-day. It made sense to incorporate some kind of sound element in that ritual. So that's where these kind of came about.
That is so exciting. Folks, keep in mind that there are only 3 of these available. Each intention chime is different. Each intention chime sounds different. Chad, can you walk us through the personality of each individual chime? There's only 3 of them.
Yeah, so this one you're looking at in the back here is the longer of the 3, the longest of the 3. It's a much deeper tone. It's also got some larger bells at the bottom. So, and each of them utilize the same kind of colors, but they're, as you can see here, these beads are blue and yellow, and the cord is red. With some of these other ones, there's blue cord with yellow and red beading. So they are unique multiples, as I said. They vary, but they're using the same items. One thing that we didn't touch on earlier that I want to just make sure everyone knows is that because these are made out of leather cord and more natural cording, it's likely not best to leave them outside if you do put them outside through the winter.
Good to know.
Because the leather cord will break down pretty substantially over time. So if you do want to hang them outside, I would say again, be intentional about that. Put them outside, leave them outside, bring them outside if you're having people over, bring them outside if you want to read outside, leave them outside for a couple of days, bring them inside. But yes, just the more you care for them, the longer they will last.
Excellent advice. Thank you for that. Thank you for that information. So folks, if you are interested in learning more about these chimes, if you're interested in purchasing one of these chimes, please visit www.qtvclive.com/shop and you can make your purchase. There are only 3 of these available, so please, if you're interested in that, get on it soon. Chad, how much are these chimes? What's the price on these?
These chimes are $200 a piece,
Okay.
Including shipping.
Awesome. So anywhere in the United States, your order will be processed via the Mocha Cleveland website and it will ship directly from Chicago. Chad, thank you so much for being here today. Can you let us know, what is your plan for the future of this series of work and what are some projects that you have upcoming?
Yeah. So I'm hoping to wrap up a new Kouri Hall record very soon, all recordings that we did during the pandemic, and just making a lot more objects. I've been doing a lot of thinking, I've been making a lot of music, and I'm looking forward to making some new paintings and working on some new collaborations in the next few months.
Awesome, awesome, Mel. Thank you again for being on the show today.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to see you. And then viewers, thank you so much for spending time with QTVC Live and Chad Kouri today. We will catch you shortly. Y'all have a great rest of your being.